I thought my boyfriend was just busy with work, until one accidental call made me hear what he was really doing behind my back. At first it made sense. That's what I kept telling myself. Work gets busy, people get stressed. Not every late reply means something is wrong. And he wasn't the kind of person I ever imagined doubting. He had always been consistent, always present, the kind of boyfriend who checked in, who remembered things, who made me feel secure without me having to ask for it. So when things started changing, I didn't question it right away. I adjusted. He started replying slower. Not all the time, just enough to notice. Sometimes he'd read my messages and respond hours later with something short, something that felt more like an obligation than a conversation. When I asked about it, he'd say work was getting intense, deadlines, meetings, extra hours. It sounded believable, so I believed it. Then came the canceled plans, last minute, always with a reason that sounded valid. Something came up. I have to stay late. I'll make it up to you, I promise. And he usually did. That's what made it harder to question, because he balanced it just enough to keep everything from falling apart, just enough to keep me from pushing too hard. I told myself relationships go through phases, that not everything has to feel perfect all the time, that this was just a stressful period. And for a while that explanation worked, until the pattern became impossible to ignore. He was always busy at night. That was the one thing that stayed consistent. Daytime texts were normal. Quick, light. But after a certain hour, everything changed. Replies slowed down, calls became shorter, and sometimes he'd disappear completely. At first I told myself it was work. Then I started noticing the gaps, the inconsistencies, how someone could be too busy to reply, but still active online. How calls would end quickly like he was distracted, like he didn't want to be heard. I asked him about it once, not accusing, just asking. He smiled, told me again that I was overthinking, and said work was just draining him, that he'd been exhausted. And once again I let it go, because trusting him felt easier than questioning everything, until one night changed everything. It was late, almost midnight. I had already gone to bed, but I couldn't sleep. Something felt off, and I couldn't explain why. So I decided to call him, not because I was suspicious, just because I missed him. The phone rang once, then twice, then suddenly it connected, but he didn't say anything. I frowned slightly, thinking maybe it was a bad connection. Hello, I said. No response. But the call was still active. I checked the screen. It hadn't dropped. That's when I heard it. Not clearly at first, just background noise, music, voices, laughter. My chest tightened instantly, because that didn't sound like work. That didn't sound like someone stuck in an office late at night. It sounded like a bar or a party. I stayed quiet, listening, trying to understand what I was hearing. Then his voice came through. Clear enough this time. Not tired, not stressed, relaxed, laughing. And then a woman's voice, close to him, too close. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard enough. Enough to know this wasn't harmless. Enough to know this wasn't work. My grip on the phone tightened. My heart was beating faster now, but everything else felt strangely still. Then I heard her say something that made everything stop. Are you going to tell her, or are we just going to keep doing this? There was a pause. A small one, but long enough. Then he laughed quietly, not nervously, not guiltily, comfortably, and said, relax, she thinks I'm working. That was it. No confusion, no misunderstanding, just the truth. Simple, clear, final. I didn't say anything. I didn't interrupt. I didn't even hang up right away. I just sat there, holding the phone to my ear, listening to the version of him I didn't know existed. And in that moment, everything made sense. The late replies, the canceled plans, the distance. It wasn't work. It was a choice he made over and over again, while I kept choosing to trust him. I ended the call quietly. No confrontation, no message, just silence. Because some truths don't need confirmation. They speak for themselves. And as I lay there staring at the ceiling, one thought kept repeating in my mind. I was never overthinking. I was just believing someone who was lying better than I was questioning.